Idol, episode 12. Tim here. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you as always. Some big news, guys, and a lot to talk about. And there's so much to cover that I don't know if I'm going to have enough time. So, a lot of things that I wanted to touch on, but I wanted to start off with the gift card giveaway. So, if you tuned in last week, you know that I was doing a gift card giveaway, $20 gift card giveaway to celebrate over 300 downloads, and we were at 301 downloads at the time that I recorded the episode. If you're a long time listener, you know I record these on Thursday, and they go up on Friday morning, sometimes Friday afternoon. Let's just say Friday. They go up on Friday. So we surpassed a huge milestone, over 300 downloads in less than 3 months, which is huge, and I'm really, really grateful, extremely humble. As of this recording, we're almost at 350. So it's been the largest, hugest week ever, and I have no one to thank but you all. You all have been huge. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of the support you've given me so far. Now, just to clarify on some of the things. So I may have used the word raffle, and whether I'm speaking to you guys one on one, whether I'm texting you, whether I'm on Twitter, and I may have even said it last week. When I say raffle, I don't mean anything that you have to buy into. It's literally just like a raffle format, if you will. So you're just emailing into the show. I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com. So it's the name of the show at hotmail.com. No apostrophes. Case doesn't matter as long as you spell it right. Your favorite episode and why. That's all you got to do. Your favorite episode and why. Or you can follow me on Twitter and DM me on Twitter. Heck, even at this point, I'll take a mention on Twitter on what your favorite episode was and why. Now, there was some confusion surrounding my Twitter name. Apparently, there's someone else who has the name of the show. Go figure. So it's part of the reason why I couldn't just name the Twitter ITIYL. I had to put it twice, but it's separated by the underscore. The underscore is that little thing that looks like a minus sign, but it's closer to the bottom of the text, closer to the bottom of the font. If you look at your minus key on your keyboard, if you hold down Shift and press the minus key on your keyboard, the one right next to the zero, you will get the underscore. So that's ITIYL, so like the initials of the show, ITIYL underscore ITIYL on Twitter. And just to be super sure, the show's Twitter has the show's logo for the profile picture. So again, that's ITIYL underscore ITIYL on Twitter, or I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com. The only thing you're doing is you're emailing in like listeners have done in the past. Email it in like Bree has done in the past. She actually was the first email that I received, either between her and Anthony, I believe. Anthony emailed in, Charles emailed in. So just email in like these ladies and gentlemen have already done, and you'll be telling me the name, your favorite episode and why. So I'm going to extend the raffle or giveaway, I should say, another week. And the reasoning I'm doing that is there was some confusion surrounding it, and I don't think it's fair for the people who wanted to participate but maybe followed the wrong person on Twitter or typed the email address in wrong and or things of that nature. And sometimes life gets in the way too. So, it's not like we're on TV every day. It's not like you're watching this. We're not this huge media outlet yet. Emphasis on yet. So I can understand how maybe that thought can get away from you. So it's a $20 gift card giveaway. Cool part about it is you guys get to pick the gift card. It could be a Visa gift card. It could be a Wawa gift card. If you're listening in the Philadelphia area, you know what Wawa is. If you're listening in the Sheets area, I appreciate you, but go back to Sheets. We don't want you. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But no, so seriously, it could be a Bloomingdale gift card. It could be a Barnes and Noble gift card. Whatever gift card you want it or need it to be. Of course, if it's a digital gift card, that'll make it easier on both of us because I can just email it to you, and that would be pretty cool. So again, $20 gift card giveaway to celebrate at this point almost 350 downloads in the span of a little under 3 months. So really, really huge there. Really excited to see where we're going to be over the next couple of months, maybe this time fall. Check, see where we are in the fall. Check to see where we are this time next year. I'm really excited, and hopefully the show can grow and evolve to involve you guys more to increase the level of engagement. Speaking of the level of engagement, I have a huge surprise. I was going to announce this on Twitter, and I am going to announce it on Twitter, but not until after the show airs. So the show is going to go live on Friday, the 27th, and then I am going to make an announcement on Twitter for anyone who didn't get a chance to listen to this episode yet. But so I've been doing some research on how to make the show a little bit more engaging, and I've been doing some research on what can I do to up the ante a little bit, and I decided to look into interviews. Now, I think interviews will help me reach that next level of engagement because you guys email in now, but I can't tell you how many people say, "Hey, I want to email in so bad. I want to tweet you so bad, but I listen to you while I'm at work, or I listen to you while I'm in the car, or I'm listening to you while I'm actually doing an activity." It's very, very rare that people listen to me in their home while they're not doing anything, while they're just, sitting at home not doing anything. I mean, it happens. I've had people come up to me and tell me, "Hey, I was actually listening to you 2 in the morning while I was doing dishes," or "Hey, I was actually listening to you while I was cleaning up the house," or "Hey, I was listening to you, in the morning while I was folding clothes doing from laundry." So people do listen to me when they're at home, but I think the majority of you all listen while you're actually occupied with something else just to make the time go by. So I can't tell you how many people actually say, "Hey, I want to email in, I want to tweet you, but I just can't, or I forget to, or I think like, hey, that's a really good point. I want to email in about that." And then by the time you get off of work, by the time you go into work, by the time you pick up the kids, whatever the case may be, next thing you know, it's like, "Oh crap, I forgot to email," and the next episode is already out. So two things I want to say to that. First, I appreciate the thought. It's the thought that counts. And two, I don't care if it's about episode one, guys. I don't care if it's about, episode one, Tiffany Haddish mispronouncing people's names. I don't care if it's about episode 3 or 4 when we're talking about Black Panther. I don't care how old it is. Email in. I know a lot of you feel like, "Oh crap, the new episode is out," or "Hey, that was 2 weeks ago. I can't email in." Hey, email in. Just title the episode. Just make the subject of your email or your DM or your mention whatever episode it was, so I can know what you're talking about. But that's it. Feel free to email in. We're not hundreds of episodes in, and even if we were hundreds of episodes in, feel free to email in. Everyone has a starting point. Everyone has a favorite episode. It's okay to email in. It's okay to do that. And I'll respond. I'll engage with you. I have no problem in doing that. So the second reason though is I want to start doing interviews so I can increase the level of engagement. Because if we're doing a phone interview, you don't really have to forget about the points that you wanted to email in. Now, I don't want to take away from the emails because I think that's still a pretty cool, engaging thing. I don't want to, of course, absolutely don't want to take away from Twitter because same thing, pretty cool, engaging thing. But I think the phone interviews will be pretty cool. And if I can get 2 or 3 of those each episode, I think it'll increase the level of engagement and it'll be fun for you all. You all get to participate in the show and you all get to give your thoughts and have other people hear your thoughts and hear your reasoning and hear where you're coming from. And the part I'm looking forward to, and for people who've been listening for some time now, they know I've been wanting this for a while. The part I'm looking forward to is to getting some contrasting opinions, some contrasting points of view. So when I get up here and say, "Hey, I appreciate Starbucks for going through, last week we talked about the whole racial situation at Starbucks. If I get up here and say, "Hey, I appreciate Starbucks going through the the racial training and, closing a few locations on the 28th, which is Saturday, and them going over the training and getting things squared away. I look forward to someone calling up or emailing in and saying, "Hey, no, you're crazy. You should boycott them. They're crazy." And just give me a little pull. I really like that. And not to say that everyone so far who's listened has agreed with every single last point that I made. That's definitely not been the case, but I haven't really had anyone email in or tweet me their viewpoint if it differed from my own, or if it differed from the majority of the listeners. So I'm really looking forward to that when it comes to the interview aspect. So I'm really looking forward to that. I believe my first interview is going to be this weekend. I'm going to call up a listener of a show who just so happens to be a friend. I'm going to toy around with some things. We're going to get some kinks out. We're going to do a few rough drafts. And then hopefully by next week, we're going to have our first couple of interviews. And I can't wait. I'm super excited. I'm almost shaking. I'm really looking forward to it. And other idle news, just to keep you guys on up. I feel like this is your guys' show just as much as it is mine. And I really like to keep you guys up to date on what's going on, and just to give you something to look forward to, and just so you can understand where my excitement is coming from. So the YouTube page is coming along. I'm in the process of, I actually just uploaded the second video from the episode 2. So back in the show's infant stages, and arguably we are still in the infant stages, but longtime listeners do know that we have come a long way in a short amount of time. So I just finished uploading the second episode. Now, the reason this is really important, and as the show goes on, guys, I'm going to actually be gearing you, shifting you more towards the YouTube page. And the reason for that is I've actually reached the cap, the memory cap, the memory threshold on my web host, which is Spreaker, Spreaker. So speaker with the R after the P, Spreaker. I've reached my audio cap. So if you guys take a look at your iTunes, your Google Play, your Stitcher, your Spreaker, you'll notice that every episode isn't up. And the reason for that is, especially since the episodes are longer now, I've had to remove some of the earlier episodes just to put the latest episode up. And in fact, because the episodes are longer and the earlier episodes were shorter, I actually had to remove maybe 2 to 3 episodes at a time just to put the latest episode up. So, for example, last week I had to get rid of episodes 3, 4, and 5 just to put episode 11 up. So, as it stands right now, at the time of this recording, there are only 6 episodes up. You got episodes 6 through 11, only 6 episodes up. And when this episode goes up, it may only be episode 7 through 12. So it sounds like I'm only going to be able to fit 5 episodes up at a time. Now, the beautiful part about the show, the reason I'm not too bummed out about it, and I've had a discussion with a few of you in person on if I should pay for more audio space on the website. But the ultimate conclusion is, hey, look, the way the show is, it's so cool that you don't really have to listen to the previous week's episode. Granted, almost every episode has really engaging topics, so I really like to stand by that point. But each episode stands alone. Each episode is its own show in and of itself, in a sense. So you're able to kind of like just dive in wherever you want. You can dive into episode 8. You can dive into episode 9. You can dive into episode 10. And it won't really matter, especially because I do a brief recap of last week's episode in every episode anyway. One of the things I'm glad I can do because the show's longer. So, but I'm going to start, slowly shifting you guys more towards the YouTube page because there's no audio limit. There's no cap on YouTube, and all of the episodes will be up eventually on YouTube. So my thinking is, hey, you can download, the latest maybe 5 episodes on iTunes, on Google Play, on Stitcher, on Spreaker, and, kind of go nuts from there. But you can also go to YouTube and catch up on maybe an earlier episode and that you maybe have missed out on. Maybe you tell one of your friends or family about the show, and they start listening at episode 20 when and if we get to that point. And they're like, episode 20 was good. I want to hear if the same quality was the same in episode 7. They can go right on over to the YouTube page. So that's pretty cool. And I also want to stand by the model. Like, the only thing I ever paid for this show, just to full transparency, guys, the only thing that I paid for is the show's logo. That's the only thing that I've paid for so far. And the biggest reason I did that is I wanted to invest in the show's brand, and I also wanted to help out a friend. Shout out to Tyler, who actually designed the show's logo. If you want to get in touch with him for any of your own graphic art or graphic design needs, let me know. I'll put you in touch with him. But shout out to Tyler, who designed the show's logo. I wanted to help him out. Plus, I didn't want to kind of like just mooch off of him. So I paid him to design the show's logo, but everything else was free. So everything else is free. This is a hobby of mine. I want to keep it that way unless this becomes a source of income for me. And same thing for you all. I never want to have you all pay for anything, unless it's something that's optional. I never want to have you all pay to listen to the show. I never want to have you all pay to just listen to content. The content should be free. It should always be free. As long you're already paying for your phone, you're already paying for your data. I'm not going to ask you to pay. You're already paying for a bunch of other things. I'm not going to ask you to pay for some average Joe who's getting behind a mic and just talking about whatever he wants. I'm not going to have you pay for that. Now in the future, if we ever come out with merchandise and things of that nature, that stuff is optional. That's a want. That's not a that's like, hey, I want to rock the show, merchandise, and hey, I want to support the show. Let me do. That's optional, and I've always found that to be optional when it comes to certain things. When I'm watching shows and I want to get a shirt or a hat or something, even my favorite sports team, when I'm rocking Eagles gear, that's optional. I don't need to do that, but I'm not paying to watch football games. I'm not paying to watch the show. So same thing for you guys. I want this service to be free. I never want you to ever have to pay to listen to the show. Same thing with the gift card. The gift card giveaway. You're not paying. You're not buying into that raffle. You're just simply putting yourself into the drawing. So that's my mindset there. So in the coming weeks, you're going to see me put a heavy emphasis on YouTube. So definitely check out the YouTube page. And again, it's already up. It just only the one episode is there right now, and the other episodes are slowly getting uploaded as time goes on, as I can find the time. So definitely looking forward to that. In other news, big news this week, especially in Philly, Meek Mill is home and he's out of prison. And that's all I got to say about that. Moving on. There's been a lot of pushback on this whole Starbucks thing, and I just wanted to say one final thought. If you want to get the rest of my thoughts as far as the whole, Starbucks thing, I encourage you to listen to episode 11. So go on, the page and check out episode 11. Listen to last week's show, and you'll see kind of where my stance on Starbucks was, and kind of where I stood at, and a lot more information has come out since I've come out and given my thoughts and opinions about the situation. The only people who know what actually physically happened in that store were the people who were involved. Everything else you're going to read and hear is secondhand at this point. The only thing that we can do is just kind of get as much of the details as we're able, and try to piece together our own thoughts and opinions. But I stand by what I said. Hey, look, don't bash or degrade somebody because they choose to shop at Starbucks, and don't judge somebody if they don't choose to shop there, if they're boycotting it. I just hope for either way, the reason is a good reason. It's not a silly reason. I just hope either way. Just don't rob yourself of something that you love and something that you enjoy over something silly, over something that doesn't necessarily affect you directly. Um, that's all I really got to say about that. So, tune in last week, guys. Tune in to last week's episode to get the full thoughts, and let me know what you think. Again, I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com, and ITIYL on Twitter. Now, my favorite part about last week was J. Cole. J. Cole dropped a new album, and it's called KOD. I didn't do any research on what it stood for. There are a lot of theories out there, especially if you look at the album art. If you look at one of the videos he did for a song off the title called ATM, and you can take a few educated guesses on what the KOD stands for, or you could just do some research. I'm sure it's out there. I didn't do any research, so I'm not entirely sure on what it stands for. But I listened to it. My first initial listen was that it's his second best album that he's ever done. And then I listened to it again, and I kind of stood by that. And then I went back and I listened to 2014 Forest Hills Drive. And I want to say here that I didn't really appreciate that album when it first came out. And again, listening to it now, I mean, I liked it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a J. Cole fan. I liked it. But I really didn't really appreciate it. And going back and listening to it now, I like it more. it's so tough, man. It's so tough. So Born Sinner is definitely J. Cole's best album, hands down. You can't really count Friday Night Lights. If you could count Friday Night Lights would be his best album. So we'll just say Friday Night Lights was his best piece of work. Friday Night Lights is amazing. Unfortunately, it's not on Spotify, so you'll have to get it some other way. It might be on Apple Music. I don't have Apple Music, so I'm not sure. So you might just have to download that through another source, like I did. But Friday Night Lights is definitely hands down his best piece of work. But his second best piece of work and his best overall album is Born Sinner. So good, very symbolic, and I could listen to every song. Now, I see a part of me, I don't like saying this because I know it's all just a matter of opinion. And when I say, hey, I could listen to the whole album front to back, but at the same time, I think that actually that's worth mentioning because if you feel you can relate to every song, you hear a message in every song, you can vibe out to every song, regardless of what mood you're in, and you can just let the album play without feeling like you have to tolerate a song, then I think that says a lot. That says a lot for the body of work. The production value in Born Center, from the way that the tracks are laid out, and the songs that he sampled, and the ad libs and the audio cues, everything's really great about that album, Born Center. So it's pretty good. It's very symbolic album. 2014 Forces Drive was pretty much almost like a biography, autobiography, or in this case, an audio biography. See what I did there? So it's really cool. It's almost like a journey. You're like growing up with J. Cole. He starts off about, how significant his the date that he was born on is, and then he talks about growing up in school, dealing with puberty and his first crush and losing his virginity for the first time. Well, I guess you only can lose your virginity once, right? So, so losing his virginity, and he talks about that. He also talks about growing up in his neighborhood and idolizing the wrong things. And one of the most powerful songs on the album to me is I think it's track 4, '03 Adolescence. And the reason the way he talks about in that particular song is about how, and I want to talk about this a little later on in the episode because it's really important to me and I want to get you guys' opinion on it. But he talked about how growing up in his neighborhood, he idolized the wrong things. He idolized the guy selling drugs. One of his classmates, or at least one of the people he went to school with, somebody he knew in the neighborhood, was he's dealing weight. He's selling drugs. That's glorified in that type of neighborhood. That's glorified. Like, oh, you're this boss. You're great. The ladies want you. The guys want to be you. You got all this money. You're cool. You're selling weed. You're selling, dope, whatever you're selling. And J. Cole was like, hey, I idolize that. I want to be that. And at the time, his friend was 17 years old, but he had a very mature outlook and said something very mature to J. Cole and said, if you wasn't my friend, I would think you were a clown. Like, you're about to graduate. You're doing really well in school. You're about to graduate. You're about to go and get a degree. And what am I going to be stuck doing? I'm either going to have to sell more drugs than I'm selling now, or I'm going to have to get a job, a less than savory job, a job that I don't want to do, and I'm barely going to be making it with that job because I don't have any experience or credentials to help me get a job that's worth it. So how insightful and mature is that? Is this the guy who everyone wants to be or be with is sitting there telling like one of the people who is idolizing him, like, look, man, you're stupid. Don't be stupid. What I got right now is nothing. What you got right now, I want to be. It's so funny how you're looking up to me when I'm looking up to you. And it's like, wow, that's really, really, really deep. So, J. Cole, 2014 Forest Hills Drive is more of I'm growing up with you. I'm living with J. Cole. I'm like growing up with him, and I get to experience everything that he talks about going to New York. He talks about, his love interest, things like that. So it's really good album, and that's the type of album it is. Now, KOD. KOD. KOD is a very if I had to choose one word, I would say metaphoric. It's very, very metaphoric. It definitely stands for something. Even if you look at, please stop what you're doing now, pause it right now, and go and look at the album cover. And don't just look at it. Like the first thing that caught my eye was just J. Cole. And I looked at J. Cole and I saw, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty morbid art, but whatever. He has a crown on his head, cool. And then I really looked at the album art one time, and I noticed the kids underneath him and the kids doing the drugs. And if you notice, the kids at the very, very bottom of the album art they look normal, and then as it kind of like progresses, you see them slowly dying, and you see kind of like J. Cole is the king of that, and like how he's like perpetuated. Oh, it's so deep. It's so deep. Like if you just look at the album cover, you totally know what the album is about. Just look at the album. If you didn't listen to it yet, even if you did, just look at the album cover. It'll put a lot of different things in perspective for you. So it's really, really, really deep, and I encourage everyone who hasn't already to listen to it. And the album starts off pretty introspective. It starts off pretty J. Cole-esque, where it outlines the different levels of pain and how you can deal with pain in many different ways. And that's important because usually the people who do drugs blame it on some sort of pain, whether it be emotional pain, whether it be physical pain, mental instability. They blame it on whatever it is. And I don't want to take away from their struggle. I don't want to take away from their pain. I don't want to take away from their emotion. But regardless of how you view it, it's still blame. It's still being blamed. And the album starts off by saying like, hey, look, there are many different ways to deal with pain. Choose wisely. And then it repeats it again and says, choose wisely. And it is really, really important because I agree. Like you have to choose with the level. For some people, it's religion. They bury themselves in a religious book. They bury themselves at church. They bury themselves in a mosque. They bury themselves at the temple. And they bury themselves in prayer and worship and whatever it is to help them through it. Some people bury themselves in recreation, whether it be sports, whether it be video games, whether it be art. Some people bury themselves in hobbies. Some people bury themselves in alcohol. And the point of this album is a lot of people, especially in inner city, dense urban environments, you know, they bury themselves in drugs. And I want I want to, just throw the question: how many of you all know somebody who dealt with that? But part of the reason I can really relate to J. Cole, especially when he talks about I forget what track it is, but there's a track that he talks about him dealing with his mom. I think it's called Once an Addict. I forget what it's called, what track it's, but he's talking about dealing with his mom, about how she got her heart broken and how that kind of like sent her towards like a downward spiral into like this substance abuse. And he talked about her habits. And I want to, just throw the question out: how many of us have a relative or a close friend or family member, that we you kind of like witness that firsthand? And the reason I could really, really, just going to get really personal with you guys, the reason I could really relate to this: my late mother smoked a lot of weed. But before I was born, she actually did other substances. She often says, so she had 4 kids. I have 2 older brothers, then me, and then my youngest brother. And my 2 oldest brothers, for a brief period of time, lived with my mom's sister, because my mom was going through it so bad. She didn't have a place to live. She was, bouncing around from house to house. And then she met my dad. And my dad was just an awesome guy. Awesome, awesome guy. And kind of helped turn her life around. And when she got pregnant with me, she often said, like, this is a new beginning. Like, I'm going to turn it around. So she got off all of this stupid, whack stuff that she was doing, and she turned her life around. but she stuck with weed. And one would argue weed isn't as dangerous, and I'm not going to get into that debate. Look, if you like to smoke, smoke. If you don't, don't. But that's what she did, and I could relate to that where J. Cole was coming from because he talks about how his mom would put on some ODs, mainly Marvin Gaye, blast the tunes to the highest volume, to the highest decibel, and just get high and just it's run away from her problems. And so funny thing is, my mom would do the exact same thing. So I almost felt like J. Cole was rapping about my mom when he did that because I was sitting here like just thinking to myself, wow, I used to come home sometimes and my mom would be blasting oldies, blasting oldies. Rick James, Marvin Gaye, Earth, Wind and Fire. The reason I know these groups, these people and their music, it's not because my mom played the music around the house while she was cleaning or we're driving somewhere in the song. She got, the radio turned to the OD station. No, she would blast her oldies while she's getting high. And I got to witness that, and it was a very painful thing to watch, and it definitely shaped my perspective on weed, and definitely was the foundation of my perception on substance abuse. So J. Cole definitely talks about that. I want to, you guys don't have to share because I know it's something that's very, very personal, and you don't really have to, open up to me if you don't want to. But how many of us know somebody who fits that description where we watched them, we witnessed the rise and the fall, we witnessed the person in their weakest state, we witnessed them deal with the drugs and the abuse and the pain, we witnessed that. But this album is really, really good. I encourage you all to listen to it. And I want to say this because a few people, I was talking to my buddy Ryan. You guys have heard Ryan's name before, and hopefully Ryan will grace me with an interview. So Ryan, if you're listening to this, hopefully you'll grace me with an interview. Who am I kidding, Ryan? I know you're listening to this. Grace me with an interview. So Ryan told me that a lot of his friends reached out to him and spoke about how the album was boring. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't involved in any of those conversations, so I couldn't really dissect the person's train of thought. But here's what I gotta say. Here's my overall review of the album. My first initial listen to the album, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Then I listened to it the second time, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. My final review of the album is 8.5 out of 10. I think it's his second best album. Tied, I'll just say tied with 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Because I think Forest Hills Drive is also 8.5 out of 10. So I think they're both tied. Depending on when you ask me, I'll say one is better than the other. But I think they're right around the same. I think it's the second best album along with Forest Hills Drive. And it's very symbolic. I encourage you all to listen to. My two gripes with the album is I think it's the laziest J. Cole has ever gotten. Now, I'm sure hearing that, especially if you're a J. Cole fan, you're probably wondering, like, well, how can you say it's the second best album, and how could you give it an 8.5 out of 10 at the same time saying it's his laziest piece of work? Well, a lot of the tracks, and it's really easy for me to sit here as somebody who isn't a professional recording artist, and I'm not a rapper. I don't make music. So it's real easy for me to sit here on my couch and sit here and say how he's being lazy because I'm not the one that has to put in the work. But at the same time, I know what he's capable of, and I don't have to do what he does to recognize something is lazy. And it's really lazy. Like the certain tracks aren't really that long. I think one track clocked in at under 2 minutes and 50 seconds. And that whole track was him repeating. So like he starts off with like lyrics. I'll just say lyric group A. Then he goes into lyric group B. And then he repeats lyric group A and then repeats lyric group B. So it's like a pattern. But it's not like a new verse or a new hook or a new bridge. It's like literally the same thing that he said at the beginning of the track. So I think that's really lazy. Like to have it'll be like bridge A, bridge B, verse, and then bridge A again, and then bridge B again, with maybe like a slight difference. So I think that's really lazy, especially when your track clocks in at under 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So it's very J. Cole-esque, but he's done it in the past for like effect and to drive home the point. Um, on one of the songs, he is praising a young lady and putting her on a pedestal, and he says, "You can turn water to wine. Yeah, you can turn water to wine." So like when you repeat it that way, it's almost like finishing a thought, like you're just sitting, like it's like reconfirmation. You're like sitting on a couch and you're like, you can turn water to wine. Yeah, yeah, you can turn water. Like almost like repeating what you just said. Like you're lost in thought and you're just like driving home the point and you're like saying it again for effect. So that isn't really lazy. But when and you'll know what I'm talking about when you hear some of the tracks. There's been tracks where like he's literally just repeated himself. And I'm like, come on, J. Cole, you're better than that. But overall, still really good album. Very, very impactful. My favorite song on the album, ooh, is really tough to say. I don't know if it's the album, and I forget what the track it is. I don't know if it's the track where he's talking about watching his mom, go through her lows after the breakup, or if it's 1985. 1985 is so good. And for any and everyone calling that a diss track, I would say that you got some coffee to drink. You are just missing the point. It is not a diss track. It's so crazy. It's like him giving advice to uh, many say Lil Pump. It was this. And by the way, I've never heard of Lil. So unfortunately, J Cole is giving this idiot some publicity. I would literally have never heard or seen Little Pump. Um, or excuse me, I actually pronounced little. I shouldn't say. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Lil Pump. Lil. And until J Cole's album came out. So that just goes to show you what type of audience Lil Pump is for. And unfortunately, J. Cole gave him some publicity, but he did it in a very mature way. He said, "Look, I heard somebody did. I heard one of them diss me. I'm surprised because J. Cole doesn't bother anybody. Um, but at the same time, he said, I ain't tripping. Listen well to my reply. So he basically he says, look, let me paint for you the large picture. Let me show you how this rap game works. You need to add substance to your rap so you're not going to be around for a long while because the people who currently listen to you, they're your age. They're in that age group. If you keep making the music that you're making now, when they grow up, they're not going to listen to you anymore. They're going to be listening to me basically. And he says 5 years from now, you're going to be loving hip hop if you keep if you keep making the music that you make now. So definitely a really really good track. I really like 1985. Wish it was longer, but the point still drives home, and I really really like it. Definitely can listen to that song on repeat. So definitely different times where I actually start to like listening to the album off with 1985. Like I'll put the whole album on repeat, listen to 1985 first, and then let it go through everything, and then let it end with 1985 again. So definitely, definitely worth giving it a listen to. But one thing in particular that J. Cole, the constant theme throughout the album that he talks about, and I just want to shift here a little bit, and I want to get you guys' opinion on, is he talks about the glorification of drugs. Now, a lot of people have done this before. I don't listen to Joey Badass, but I've been told Joey Badass has done it. I know for a fact that Kendrick Lamar has done it, not only on Section 80, which is so good if you haven't listened to it, but also on Good Kid, Mad City. He talks about the negative influences and peer pressures of the black community and dense urban environments. And um, it's really important. I say urban environments. Obviously, these things are um, on the forefront in the black community, but it's very important to say dense urban environments as well because it's not just a black thing. It's anyone. I can't tell you the amount of Asians, the Hispanics, and the white people who have all been um, influenced negatively by drugs and violence in their communities. It just of course the spotlight gets shown on the black community, and justifiably so in some cases, but it's in other communities too. So it's definitely an urban environment. Now there are drugs in the suburban environment too, but there is it's a different type of negativity. It's still negative. It's just a different. It's not as much violent as it is. addictive abuse. Towards in urban environments, you kind of have both. You have that violent shade, that violent tone, and that abusive, addictive tone. But he talks about, and I just wanted to get you guys' opinion. He talks about the glorification of drugs. And I grew up in a neighborhood where there were definitely people selling drugs. Definitely. And I don't want to paint this picture like I grew up in a super, super bad neighborhood and had to watch my back every time I walked home. I never got jumped in my neighborhood. I never got robbed in my neighborhood. My neighborhood wasn't extremely bad, but it wasn't great either. And there was definitely people selling drugs. There were definitely gunshots. Definitely, dilapidated houses and crack houses and bums and crackheads walking up and down the street. Definitely something that was present in my neighborhood. And when I sit here and tell you one of the biggest pet peeves I have is when people blame selling drugs on needing money because they can't find a good job. I am not going to steer this discussion in the direction of being in somebody's pockets. I am not going to steer the discussion in a direction of belittling or shaming somebody. But I'll say this, and I'll speak specifically to my experience. Growing up, even being a teenager and even being a young adult, anyone that I've come across who have sold drugs, they're selling drugs or they've sold drugs in that age group, it's because they wanted to. Let me drive that point home. They wanted to. They didn't say, "Oh man, I got a baby on the way. How am I going to make money?" "Oh man, I'm trying to get this house. I'm trying to get this car." Or "I need money for this. I need money for that." No, they sold drugs because they wanted to. They thought it was cool. And they got in too deep. Now, of course, you're 17 years old. The only place you're going to be able to work is maybe Rita's Water Ice. If you're over here in the Philadelphia area, you know what that is. Or, a Wawa or a movie theater or a nursing home, or a fast food restaurant, a diner, something like that. Or you're going to be a busboy at the local IHOP. You're 17 years old. You're 18 years old. That's the best you're going to get. You're not going to be able, you're going to be working at the bottom of the barrel in retail like I did. My first job, I was basically a holiday hire, making minimum wage, which at the time was like 5.25 an hour, or I think it was like maybe 5.45 an hour. So, but it's okay. What bills did I have? I didn't have any bills. I was living at home with my mom. She was taking care of everything. The only thing I really need was just some pocket change to go to like the movies or go to like Dave and Buster's, or to go to like the arcade, or you know buy me some sneakers for school or some clothes or something like that. I just needed pocket change to go have fun with my friends. I'm 17, I'm 18 years old. It wasn't until like, hey, I moved out and I needed to start making some real money. And then, but by that time, I stuck with my job long enough to where I was a manager and I was making more money. And then when I got my own place, I got promoted again. So hey, look, if you stick with something long enough when you are 16, 17 years old and you do have a good work ethic and you do have a good leadership team at work, then you're going to make more money. It's an eventuality. It's an inevitability. It's going to happen. But, our generation specifically, we're part of the microwave generation. We want it fast. We want it quick. And when I tell you, when I came across some 16, 17, 18-year olds, and even when, some 22, 23-year olds who are selling drugs, they're doing it because they want to. And then by the time they get the age I'm at now, think about this. For all the people who argue that minimum wage should be $15 an hour because someone can't survive on minimum wage, that's poppycock. It's poppycock. It's ludicrous. It's absurd. Someone who is working a minimum wage job shouldn't be in a situation. Minimum wage jobs aren't for adults. You're exactly right. Minimum wage jobs are for kids. Minimum wage jobs are for adults, young adults rather. Minimum wage jobs are for teenagers to get some work experience and to get something underneath their belt. That way, by the time they do become an adult, they have a career. They're working towards a career. I always said, for the most part, if you're working minimum wage or just over minimum wage and you're not working 40 hours a week, you have a job. But if you are working 40 hours a week and you have benefits and maybe your salary, then you have a career. And that's the problem with our generation. We sit there working, we always try to get jobs. We're not working towards a career. And we just want everything to happen quickly. We want to put it in the microwave for 2 minutes and have a 5 course meal. It doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. And it just bothers me so much. That's why you have people who, think about it this way. I got hired at my first job when I was 16 years old. I was making minimum wage. I was working like 6 to 8 hours a week. I bust my butt. I did everything that I had to do when I got to the job. I asked my leadership team and even my leadership team's leaders on what I can do to get more hours. What can I do to succeed? What can I do? I started picking. It's like, hey, look, and then I understood the business model. Understand that look, there's only but so many hours to go around, and just because I need hours more than somebody else doesn't justify them giving the hours to me over someone else who deserves it, right? So I said, well, hey, can I go to other stores to pick up hours? And I did. I was working at two different stores, same company, two different stores. I was working at my home store 3 days a week, and I was working at another mall 2 days a week. And then eventually I got promoted. And eventually I got promoted again. And eventually I got more hours. And eventually I got promoted again. And then eventually I got promoted again. And then the next thing you know, within, let's see, I got hired in '06. Let's see, within 6 years, I was running the store. So, it you definitely got to put in the work. And if you're 17 years old, you're 18 years old, and you're working at McDonald's, you're working at Burger King, you're working at the local diner. Yeah, you're getting paid minimum wage or less than. If you're a server or a waiter or waitress, whatever. Yes, you're getting paid minimum wage. But if you sit there and look at that job and go, oh, this ain't worth it. I'm never going to make money here. And you leave that job and you go somewhere else and you make $1 more an hour. What type of experience are you getting? You know what I mean? So you got these 17-year-olds, these 18-year-olds who are impatient because they don't want to, hit the grindstone. They don't want to put the pedal to the metal. And they're 17, 18 years old and go, hey, I want to make more money. Now I need to. And I'm sure there's some 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 16-year-old people out there who are in a very unique situation. We talk about drug abuse. Maybe their parents are abusive parents and they need to support the household. Maybe they have siblings they need to take care of, or maybe they need to move out on their own. So I get the need to make more money sometimes. But generally speaking, I think most would agree with me. Generally speaking, when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you're still at home with your mom. You're still at home with your dad. You're still at home with your parents. You're at home with a guardian who takes care of you. So they get impatient. They go, you know what? I want to make more money. So they go to sell drugs. They sell drugs because they want to. Most people sell drugs because they want to. They try to shape this thing like, oh, we're selling drugs because we need to. But that's not as much the case. I'm sure it's the case in some cases, but it's not as much the case as they try to make you out to believe. It's just really easy to blame it on this invisible shadowy figure who's out to get you and can't you can't get a job because of the quote unquote the white man, or the man, or they, whoever they is, this shadowy organization, the Illuminati, is preventing you from getting hired, so you got to go sell drugs. Yeah, okay, you keep that up, buddy. But it really spoke to me, like J. Cole's album when he's talking about the glorification of drugs, and I just sit here thought about it. I'm like, that's so true. In my neighborhood, people definitely glorified that. Definitely, I can't think of one single last person, the people I grew up with. And I went to neighborhood schools for the most part, with the exception of high school. I spent 3 years in a really good school, and then my last year I spent at the neighborhood school. But even still, the high school that I went to, the magnet school that I went to, was still in a poor neighborhood for the most part. So, I got to see a lot of that, you know, drug dealing mindset going on. And when I tell you that every single last person I interacted with did it because they wanted to. They wanted the Jordans to expect to impress the kids in school. They wanted the latest clothes. They wanted the Dickie sets. They wanted the double sided brush. They wanted the the Air Jordans, the Nikes. They wanted the good stuff. They wanted jewelry. They wanted a haircut every week. So they sold drugs. Because in their mind, that's how they would get it. They didn't want to work. They wanted it fast and easy, not realizing that they're putting their life in danger and they're setting themselves up for failure because when you sell drugs for 10 years and you finally wake up and you go, you know what, I need to get a job. Now you're going to be stuck working at a place that you would have been working at 10 years ago because you had the same amount of experience you had 10 years ago. So just a wake up call for the people who wonder why they're in the situation that they're in. And I'm not necessarily judging anybody, but I just want just a reality check. Oftentimes we put ourselves in a situation that we complain about. Oftentimes it's us. Oftentimes we're the main culprit. So um, definitely something to look at. So I want to hear from you all. I want to hear from you all to write into the show, please. And hopefully soon I'll be getting some interviews on the show. But let me know why. Let me know why, drugs were glorified in your community if they were. And let me know if what you think the reason your peers sold drugs were for. Do you think they did it out of necessity or do you think they did it just to be cool and hip? So feel free to tune in. I can't wait to hear from you all. I'm really looking forward to this interview thing too, guys. I can't wait to hear from you all, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. So feel free to write into the show. Don't forget about the $20 gift card giveaway, and feel free to follow me on Twitter. Remember, that's ITIYL underscore ITIYL, or I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com. In the meantime, guys, I will see you all out in the world. I'll keep talking if you listen. Take care.